The sky is not empty. It is a vast blue cathedral of violence, a roaring, shuddering arena where boys from the heartland decide the fate of nations. And on this day, a day that would be carved into legend, the air itself screams with the fury of 1,000 demons. It is October 14th, 1943. Below, the patchwork fields of Germany drift by in a deceptively peaceful mosaic. But here, at 25,000 feet, the air is thin, razor-sharp, and 50 degrees below zero. This is the domain of the 100th Bomb Group, the Bloody Hundredth, and they are flying straight into the jaws of hell itself. Their target, the ball-bearing factories of Schweinfurt, a critical blow to the Nazi war machine. But the Germans know they are coming. The air is thick with a lethal confetti of black flak bursts, each one a concussive fist of steel and fire that hammers the heavy frames of the B-17 flying fortresses. Inside the cockpit of one of these mighty bombers, the Memphis Belle, the world is a cacophony of roaring engines, the metallic rattle of airframe stress, and the frantic crackling voices over the interphone. The co-pilot, a young man from Ohio with knuckles white on the controls, stares out at the expanding black clouds, each one a lottery of death. And then you see them. First as specks, distant and shimmering in the high-altitude sun. Then they materialize into a horrifying swarm. Not dozens, but hundreds of German fighter aircraft, Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf FW-190s, climbing, diving, swarming like angry hornets. This is no mere interception. This is an aerial ambush of unprecedented scale. The sky is about to become a slaughterhouse. But what the German pilots don't know, what they couldn't possibly anticipate, is that among this besieged American formation, there is a man whose skill, courage, and cold fury will defy the very logic of the odds stacked against him. A man who will not just survive the onslaught, but will turn hunter in a sky full of predators. How does one man find the will to fight back when surrounded by certain death? How does a single pilot in a single harrowing mission achieve the impossible? The order crackles over the radio, tight with controlled panic. Fighters, 12 o'clock high, everyone look alive. The bomber formation tightens its ranks, a defensive hedgehog of 50 caliber machine guns bristling from every turret, nose, and tail. The gunners, their breath fogging in the frigid air, their bodies encumbered by heavy electrically heated suits, swing their weapons toward the approaching tide. The lead German fighters peel off, their wings flashing in the sun as they begin their firing passes. They come in fast, head-on, their 20mm cannons winking with deadly intent. Tracers stitch through the formation, a lethal tapestry of orange and red. A B-17 to the right, the Yankee Raider, takes a direct hit. There's a silent, blossoming flower of orange flame for a brief second before the sound reaches you. A deep, terrible crump that vibrates through your own aircraft. The great fortress shudders, breaks in two, and begins its long, tumbling 11-mile fall to earth, a funeral pyre for 10 men. The sight is soul-crushing. This is the reality of the air war over Europe. It is impersonal, mechanical, and utterly final. And it is only the beginning. The German pilots, emboldened, press their attacks with ruthless efficiency. They come from the sides, from below, from above, their cannon shells ripping through aluminum skin, severing control cables, and extinguishing young lives in an instant. The air is filled with the sickly sweet smell of cordite, the coppery tang of fear, and the piercing cold that bites at any exposed skin. Inside the cockpits and turrets, the crews are living a nightmare, their world reduced to the roar of engines, the chatter of guns, and the desperate hope that the next shell has someone else's name on it. They are flying through a storm of steel, and with every passing second, the chances of returning home grow slimmer. The mission is unraveling before it has even begun, and the question is no longer about destroying the target, but about simple, raw survival. Can anyone make it through this gauntlet of fire? The answer, it seems, is a terrifying and resounding no. But one man is about to change the equation. High above the beleaguered bomber stream, flying top cover in their sleek, powerful Republic P-47 Thunderbolts, the pilots of the 4th Fighter Group watch the carnage unfold with a growing sense of helpless fury. They are the shepherds, tasked with protecting the flock, but the wolves are too many. Their fuel is limited, their numbers are dwarfed, and the Luftwaffe has chosen its moment with devastating precision. Among these pilots is a young man, his face obscured by an oxygen mask and goggles, his hands resting with a practiced ease on the throttle and control stick. His name is Lieutenant Urban Ben Drew. He is not a seasoned ace, not yet, but today the fates have aligned to place him in the center of the storm. He scans the sky, his eyes sharp and focused, tracking the swirling melee of aircraft below. The radio is a bedlam of shouted warnings, calls for help, and the static-laced cries of men in their final moments. His own heart hammers against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the steady, powerful thrum of the Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine that surrounds him. The Thunderbolt is a beast of an aircraft, heavy, durable, and armed with 8.50 caliber machine guns, a flying battery of immense power. But against the nimble, numerous German fighters, it feels like bringing a sledgehammer to a knife fight. Drew's flight leader's voice cuts through the chaos, calm but urgent. "Blue Flight, we're going down. Stick close and watch your six. Pick your targets and make your shots count." With a collective roar, the P-47s nose over into a steep dive, their turbo superchargers whining as they build up tremendous speed. The world outside Drew's canopy becomes a blur of blue sky and green earth, the G-forces pressing him back into his seat. He is a falcon plummeting towards the fray. His mind is a checklist of procedures, mixture-rich, propeller pitch, gun sight on. But beneath the training, a cold knot of anxiety tightens in his gut. This is it. This is the moment where theory meets the brutal reality of combat. He sees a Messerschmitt Bf-109, its distinct yellow nose gleaming, lining up for a killing pass on a stricken B-17 that is already trailing smoke. The Fortress's gunners are firing back bravely, tracers arcing towards the German fighter, but the 109 holds its course, its wings sparkling with cannon fire. Drew makes a split-second decision. That bomber, those 10 men, are his responsibility. He pushes the throttle forward, feeling the Thunderbolt surge with acceleration. He lines up the 109 in his reflector sight, the glowing pipper settling just ahead of the enemy aircraft's nose. He feels a strange calm descend, a tunnel vision where the entire universe shrinks to the circle of his gun sight and the gray shape of the Messerschmitt. His thumb hovers over the red trigger button on his control stick. He takes a breath, lets it half out, and he fires. The 8.5 calibers erupt in a thunderous, shuddering roar that vibrates through the entire airframe. A torrent of armor-piercing and incendiary rounds streaks across the sky, a solid stream of lead that walks its way towards the unsuspecting German fighter. The tracers converge on the 109's cockpit and engine. For a heart-stopping second, nothing happens. Then a flash, a puff of black smoke, and then the Messerschmitt simply comes apart, its wings shearing off in a cloud of debris, the rest of the aircraft cartwheeling wildly into the void. Drew yanks back on the stick, pulling out of his dive and racing past the exploding fighter. So close he feels the heat wash over his canopy. There is no time for triumph, no moment of reflection. One down. But as he levels out, skimming the top of the bomber formation, a new, more terrifying threat emerges from the corner of his eye. What he sees next is something no American pilot had ever encountered in such numbers, a secret weapon that could change the course of the air war in an instant, and it is barreling straight towards him. What Drew sees defies belief. Cutting through the American formation with terrifying speed and grace are a squadron of twin-engine fighters, their silhouettes unlike anything he's been briefed on. They are larger than the 109s and 190s, with sleek, pencil-shaped fuselages and distinctive twin tail booms. These are Messerschmitt Me-410 Hornissen, Hornets, and they are not just fighter interceptors. Many are heavily armed Zerstorer, or destroyers, packing 30mm and 50mm cannons designed to shred the tough-skinned B-17s from beyond the range of their defensive guns. They fly through the flak and fighter screen with an arrogant confidence, their speed making them incredibly difficult targets. Drew watches, horrified, as one of them lines up on a B-17 from the rear, holding its fire until it is devastatingly close. When it does fire, it's not the brief sparkle of 20mm cannons. It's a single, massive flash from its nose, followed by a geyser of metal and flame erupting from the bomber's wing. The Fortress immediately falls out of formation, a gaping hole torn in its structure. The Me-410's attack is surgical, brutal, and efficient. This new enemy changes everything. The P-47s, built for durability and dive speed, are now facing an aircraft that can outrun them in level flight and outgun them at range. Drew's flight is scattered, each pilot now fighting his own private war for survival against a swarm of enemies. The radio is a frantic, overlapping mess. Break left! Break left! I've got two on my tail! Where did they all come from? Drew banks his heavy Thunderbolt hard, his head on a swivel, constantly scanning the deadly chessboard of the sky. The pristine blue has become a chaotic canvas of contrails, smoke, fire, and the darting shapes of friend and foe. The air is so thick with aircraft it seems impossible to fly through it without colliding. He feels a jolt, a hammer blow impact on his fuselage, a glancing hit from a 20mm shell. The controls feel sloppy for a moment, but the tough Thunderbolt holds together. He glances in his rearview mirror and his blood runs cold. Stuck to his tail like a shadow is a Focke-Wulf FW-190, its radial engine and squat, deadly profile unmistakable. The German pilot is good, patient. He's waiting for the perfect shot. Tracers zip past Drew's canopy, close enough to hear their whip-crack sound over the engine roar. Instinct and training take over. He slams the throttle to the firewall and pushes the stick forward, putting the P-47 into a sudden, gut-wrenching dive. The G-forces push him forward against his harness, the world outside turning a darker blue as he plummets towards the earth. The FW-190 follows, but the Thunderbolt was built for this. In a dive, nothing in the European theater could catch it. The airspeed indicator needle spins wildly, passing 450, 500 miles per hour. The entire aircraft begins to buffet, shaking violently as it approaches its never-exceed speed. He risks a glance back. The FW-190 is falling behind, a tiny speck against the vastness of the sky. He has escaped, but he is now alone, low on fuel and ammunition, separated from his squadron, and miles away from the relative safety of the bomber stream. He is a lone wolf in a forest full of hunters. And as he pulls out of his dive, his eyes sweep the horizon, looking for a landmark, for a friendly aircraft, for anything. What he finds instead, parked seemingly without a care at a German airfield below, is an opportunity for vengeance so audacious it borders on suicide. The world swims back into focus as Drew eases back on the stick, pulling the screaming Thunderbolt out of its terminal velocity dive. The force is immense, pressing him down into his seat so hard his vision tunnels, speckles of black and white dancing at the edges. For a moment, he fears the wings will tear off, but the robust aircraft holds, groaning in protest but obeying his commands. Leveling out at barely 5,000 feet, the landscape below is no longer a vague patchwork, but a vividly detailed map of fields, roads, and villages. The roar of the engine is deafening at this lower altitude, a constant, powerful reminder of the machine he commands. He is desperately vulnerable down here, a lone American fighter in the heart of Nazi Germany. Any flak battery or alert patrol could spot him and end his flight in seconds. His fuel gauge is dipping ominously towards the reserve, and his ammunition counter shows he has less than half his .5 caliber rounds remaining. The prudent, the only sensible thing to do is to turn west, dive back down to treetop level, and run for home, hoping to avoid detection. But then he sees it. Just a few miles to the north, nestled behind a forest, is a pristine German airbase. It's not a major complex, more of a satellite field, but it's active. And there, lined up neatly on the tarmac as if on parade, are rows of Luftwaffe aircraft, Me-109s, U-88 transports, and, most enticingly, several of the new, deadly Me-410 Hornets that had been wreaking such havoc minutes before. They are refueling and rearming, their pilots probably debriefing, completely unaware of the lone American predator circling high above their home. A cold, calculated fury rises in Drew's chest. These are the machines that are killing his friends. These are the weapons that turned the sky over Schweinfurt into a charnel house. To destroy them on the ground would be a blow not just against the German war machine, but a personal act of retribution for the men he saw falling in flames. It is an insane risk. The airfield will be defended by anti-aircraft guns. He would have to make a single, low-level pass right into the teeth of their defenses with no element of surprise and no wingmen to watch his back. It is a one-way ticket to a POW camp or a grave. But the temptation is irresistible. The image of the disintegrating B-17s, the screaming voices on the radio, the relentless swarms of enemy fighters, it all coalesces into a single, driving imperative: make them pay. He makes his decision. There will be no running, not yet. He banks the P-47 towards the airfield, his mind already racing through the attack profile. He'll come in out of the sun, low and fast, using the terrain for cover until the last possible second. He adjusts his mixture, checks his gun switch is armed, and feels a strange, surreal calm. This is no longer about survival, it is about striking a blow. He descends, skimming the treetops, the shadow of his aircraft flitting across the German countryside like a harbinger of doom. The airfield grows larger in his windscreen. He can see figures moving on the ground, tiny specks that are men going about their daily duties, completely oblivious to the storm that is about to break upon them. He lines up on the main runway, his thumb resting once more on the trigger. The 850 calibers are thirsty. The airfield's defenses are silent, unsuspecting. He is seconds from unleashing hell. But as he closes the distance, a movement at the far end of the field catches his expert eye. One of the Me-410s, the prize he most desires to destroy, is not parked. Its propellers are turning, it's beginning to taxi. It's not a stationary target anymore, it's a living, breathing enemy about to take flight and rejoin the battle. The calculus of his attack has just changed, and the stakes have been raised to an impossible new height. Time seems to warp, stretching and compressing. The taxiing Me-410 is no longer a passive target. It is a threat that must be neutralized before it can get airborne and become a hunter once more. Drew's attack run, planned as a simple strafing pass, has instantly become a race. He has mere seconds to destroy this aircraft before it becomes airborne and turns the tables on him. He pushes the throttle forward, the Thunderbolt's engine bellowing in response, its speed building as it hurtles towards the airfield perimeter. The world narrows to the rectangular patch of concrete ahead, the gray shape of the moving Hornet, and the glowing circle of his gun sight. He can see details now, the black crosses on the fuselage, the glint of the cockpit canopy, the slow, deliberate turn of the nose wheel as the German pilot guides his aircraft towards the runway. They are both pilots, both warriors, separated by a few thousand yards of grass and tarmac, their fates about to collide. The first flak bursts begin to blossom around him, ugly black smudges that pepper the sky. The Germans on the ground have finally seen him. A machine gun nest near the control tower opens up, its tracers arcing towards him, lazy at first, then whipping past his wings with terrifying speed. He ignores it all. His focus is absolute. He adjusts his aim, leading the taxiing Me-410 slightly. It's a difficult shot, a moving target on the ground, while he himself is moving at over 350 miles per hour. His breathing is steady, his hand firm on the stick. At 800 yards, he squeezes the trigger. The familiar bone-deep shudder of the 8 machine guns rips through the aircraft. A torrent of fire pours from his wings, walking across the tarmac, kicking up fountains of concrete and dirt. He sees his rounds connect. Sparks fly from the Me-410's fuselage and wing roots. For a moment, it seems to shrug off the damage. Then, a fuel tank is punctured. A sheet of brilliant orange flame erupts from the wing, engulfing the entire aircraft in seconds. The Hornet becomes a stationary inferno, its fuselage buckling, its cockpit consumed by fire. The pilot and crew never had a chance. Drew doesn't have time to watch it burn. He's already scanning for his next target, his eyes darting across the line of parked aircraft. He swings the nose of his P-47 towards another Me-410, this one sitting silently, its engine still. Another long burst, and the 850 calibers do their work again. Rounds tear into the thin skin of the German aircraft, igniting fuel and ammunition in a chain reaction of destruction. It blows apart, pieces of wing and tail assembly cartwheeling through the air, scattering the ground crew who are now running for their lives. The entire airfield is in chaos. Sirens begin to wail. More anti-aircraft guns join the fray, their shells bursting all around him, shaking his aircraft with their concussive force. He is flying through a storm of his own making, a maelstrom of fire, smoke, and screaming metal. He has become the very embodiment of death from above. But his pass is almost over. He is running out of airfield, out of time, and out of sky. He has to get out. Now. He starts a climbing turn to the left, intending to flee back to the safety of low altitude. His mission of vengeance complete. But as he banks, looking back over his shoulder at the burning wreckage he has left behind, he sees something that freezes the blood in his veins. The chaos he has sown has an unintended consequence. Another Me-410, perhaps alerted by the commotion, has taken off from a different part of the field. It is now climbing, turning, and its nose is swinging directly towards him. He is no longer the hunter. He is the prey, caught low, slow, and vulnerable, with a fresh and vengeful enemy pilot now locking on to his tail. The world tilts on its axis. In a matter of heartbeats, Drew has gone from predator to quarry. The newly airborne Me-410 is climbing with a purpose, its twin Daimler-Benz engines giving it a rate of climb that his heavier single-engine Thunderbolt cannot match at this low altitude and speed. He is caught in the worst possible position, low on energy, having just completed a high-speed, low-level strafing run. The German pilot has all the advantages: altitude, energy, and the element of surprise. Drew's mind races, discarding options as fast as he can think of them. Climbing away is suicide. The 410 would easily catch him in its sights. Diving away is his P-47's strength, but he has no altitude to trade for speed. He is trapped over the very airfield he just attacked, a sitting duck for the enraged German defenders on the ground and in the air. A stream of cannon fire erupts from the nose of the Me-410, brilliant orange golf balls that streak past his canopy. The German is still out of optimal range, but he is finding his aim. Drew slams the stick hard right and left, throwing the Thunderbolt into a violent jinking evasion. The G-forces slam him around in his cockpit. He can feel the sweat beading on his forehead, despite the frigid air blasting through the bullet holes in his fuselage. The airfield's flak guns have stopped firing, afraid of hitting their own man. This is now a pure one-on-one duel. "Think, Drew, think," he mutters to himself, his voice a strained gasp in the oxygen mask. The Me-410 with a stable gun platform, designed for this kind of attack. Its pilot will try to get in close for a definitive kill. Drew's only chance is to use the Thunderbolt's one hidden advantage at low speed, its incredible ruggedness and its ability to turn inside a faster opponent if he manages his energy perfectly. He makes a desperate decision. Instead of running, he turns into the attack. He chops the throttle, pulls back hard on the stick, and stands the P-47 on its wingtip, executing a tight climbing turn directly towards the diving Me-410. It's a bluff, a move of sheer unadulterated audacity. It's the aerial equivalent of a cornered animal turning to face its attacker. For a split second, the two aircraft are pointed directly at each other, a high-speed joust in the sky over Germany. The German pilot, shocked by the aggressive maneuver, instinctively breaks off his attack, pulling up and to the side to avoid a head-on collision. This is the momentary break Drew needed. He slams the throttle back to full power and drops the nose not to run, but to build up speed in a shallow dive, circling back towards the center of the airfield. He is now using the airfield itself as his arena, forcing the faster twin-engine Me-410 to follow him into a turning fight, a low-speed scrum where the heavy but responsive Thunderbolt might just have a chance. The two aircraft begin a deadly waltz, circling each other at barely 1,000 feet, their wingtips seeming to brush the tops of the hangars. It is an insane, intimate combat, witnessed by dozens of German soldiers on the ground. Drew can see the details of the Me-410 now, the rivets on its skin, the dark tint of the canopy. He knows the German pilot is good. He knows one mistake, one misjudgment will be his last. He is flying on the very edge of his skill and his aircraft's capabilities, dancing with death in the enemy's backyard. And he is painfully aware that his ammunition is dwindling with every second this duel continues. The first flak bursts begin to blossom around him, ugly black smudges that pepper the sky. The Germans on the ground have finally seen him. A machine gun nest near the control tower opens up, its tracers arcing towards him, lazy at first, then whipping past his wings with terrifying speed. He ignores it all. His focus is absolute. He adjusts his aim, leading the taxiing Me-410 slightly. It's a difficult shot, a moving target on the ground, while he himself is moving at over 350 miles per hour. His breathing is steady, his hand firm on the stick. At 800 yards, he squeezes the trigger. The familiar bone-deep shudder of the 8 machine guns rips through the aircraft. A torrent of fire pours from his wings, walking across the tarmac, kicking up fountains of concrete and dirt. He sees his rounds connect. Sparks fly from the Me-410's fuselage and wing roots. For a moment, it seems to shrug off the damage. Then, a fuel tank is punctured. A sheet of brilliant orange flame erupts from the wing, engulfing the entire aircraft in seconds. The Hornet becomes a stationary inferno, its fuselage buckling, its cockpit consumed by fire. The pilot and crew never had a chance. Drew doesn't have time to watch it burn. He's already scanning for his next target, his eyes darting across the line of parked aircraft. He swings the nose of his P-47 towards another Mi-410, this one sitting silently, its engine still. Another long burst, and the 850 calibers do their work again. Rounds tear into the thin skin of the German aircraft, igniting fuel and ammunition in a chain reaction of destruction. It blows apart, pieces of wing and tail assembly cartwheeling through the air. The duel degenerates into a brutal, twisting knife fight at treetop level. The Mi-410, with its superior power, tries to climb and then swoop down on Drew's tail. But each time, Drew anticipates the move, cutting inside the German's turn with a gut-wrenching hard pull on the stick, the P-47's wings groaning under the stress. He is flying by instinct now, his body feeling the aircraft as an extension of himself. The smell of cordite, oil, and fear is thick in the cockpit. His eyes are glued to his rearview mirror and the twisting shape of the Hornet. The German pilot is relentless, a skilled and determined opponent. Another cannon shell screams past, this one so close he hears the whump of its passage over the engine roar. It's a game of inches, of split-second reactions. Drew knows he cannot win this fight defensively. The Mi-410 will eventually get a lucky shot or simply outlast him. He has to attack. He has to turn the tables once more. He sees his chance. The German, frustrated, makes a slightly wider turn, presenting a fleeting quartering shot. It's not ideal, it's a snapshot, but it's all he's going to get. Drew stomps on the right rudder, skidding his Thunderbolt sideways to lead the target, and depresses the trigger. The guns roar for a 2-second burst. Tracers arc out, and he sees a handful of strikes sparking along the Mi-410's engine nacelle and rear fuselage. It's not a killing blow, but it's a hit. A thin stream of black smoke begins to trail from the German's left engine. The aircraft shudders, and its turn widens further. The pilot's concentration is broken, if only for a moment. This is the opportunity. Drew doesn't hesitate. He abandons his defensive turning and goes straight for the kill. He pushes the nose down, building up every ounce of speed he can, and then pulls back into a steep climbing turn, coming up and underneath the smoking Mi-410. It's a high-risk, high-reward maneuver called a low-side yo-yo, designed to convert speed back into altitude and position. For a breathtaking second, he is inverted, looking up at the belly of the German aircraft, the green fields of Germany, his sky. Then he rolls upright, now perfectly positioned behind and slightly below the damaged Hornet. The German pilot, distracted by the damaged engine and the loss of power, is slow to react. The massive twin-boom tail of the Mi-410 fills Drew's entire windscreen. It's the perfect shot. He doesn't need to lead. He simply centers the pipper on the enemy's fuselage, right between the two tail booms, and holds down the trigger. The remaining ammunition in his guns pours out in one long, final, vengeful burst. The 8 streams of .5 caliber fire converge on a single point, sawing the Mi-410 in half. The tail section simply disintegrates in a cloud of shredded metal. The front of the aircraft, its wings still oddly level for a moment, noses over and plunges straight down, cartwheeling into a field just beyond the airfield perimeter, exploding on impact in a silent, distant flower of fire from Drew's perspective. The roar of his own gun ceases abruptly. He is out of ammunition. The sudden silence in his cockpit is deafening, broken only by the steady, powerful thrum of his own engine. He has done it. Against all odds, he has shot down a third enemy aircraft. But the triumph is short-lived. He is now utterly defenseless, a lone, unarmed American plane deep inside Germany, with a very angry airfield full of witnesses now knowing exactly where he is and what he has just done. The adrenaline that had been coursing through Drew's veins, sharpening his senses and fueling his actions, suddenly recedes, leaving in its wake a hollow, trembling exhaustion. He is spent. His muscles ache, his flight suit is soaked with sweat, and his hands are shaking. He takes a deep, ragged breath, the oxygen from his mask feeling thin and inadequate. The third kill, the destruction of the Mi-410 in a ball of fire, plays over in his mind on a continuous, horrifying loop. There is no glory in it, only a grim, visceral finality. He has taken 3 lives, maybe more if there were crew in the bumpers on the ground. He has extinguished them. The weight of it settles on him, a cold, heavy stone in his stomach. But there is no time for remorse, no time for reflection. The flak guns on the airfield have found their range again, now that the fear of hitting their own fighter is gone. Black puffs of smoke blossom around him, closer this time, more accurate. The shrapnel pings against his aircraft's skin like deadly hail. A piece tears through his left aileron, making the controls shudder. He must run, now. He shoves the throttle forward and pushes the stick forward, putting the P-47 into a shallow dive, heading west, towards home, towards England. He stays low, skimming the treetops, using the landscape as cover. His mind is a frantic checklist of survival, fuel, ammunition, damage, navigation. The fuel gauge is his primary terror. The needle is hovering dangerously close to the red. The long, high-powered dogfight and the strafing run have consumed precious gallons. He calculates frantically in his head. The coast is miles away. The English Channel is a vast, cold moat. He has to make it across. If he goes down in the channel, his chances of rescue are slim to none. The Thunderbolt, for all its toughness, is not a boat. He switches his radio to the guard channel, the emergency frequency. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," he calls out, his voice surprisingly steady. "Any Allied station, this is Kingfish Blue 3. I am alone, repeat, alone, low on fuel and unarmed, heading west from an enemy airfield. Request bearing and any friendly cover." Static is his only reply. He is alone in the ether as well as in the sky. The German countryside flashes beneath him, a blur of green and brown. He weaves around church steeples, follows river valleys, anything to throw off any pursuers, and to avoid presenting a straight-line target for flak batteries he knows must be alerted by now. Every second feels like an hour. Every mile is a gift. He scans his instruments constantly. Oil pressure, good. Cylinder head temperature, climbing, but acceptable. RPMs, steady. The damaged aileron makes the aircraft pull slightly to the left, but it's manageable. It's the fuel that is the true enemy now. The needle has officially entered the red. He is on fumes. He begins to pray, a silent, desperate plea to a God he hasn't spoken to since he was a boy. He thinks of home, of his family, of the men in the bombers he tried to protect. The images give him a grim resolve. He will not die here. He will not let this German soil claim him. He levels out just 100 feet above the ground, the propeller kicking up a wake in the tall grass of a field. He is pushing the Thunderbolt to its absolute limit, squeezing out every last ounce of speed and range. And then, ahead, through a light haze, he sees it. A shimmering silver line on the horizon. The coast. The English Channel. It is the most beautiful, terrifying sight he has ever seen. But as he races towards it, a new, chilling sight greets him. The beaches below are not empty. They are fortified. Concrete pillboxes, anti-aircraft emplacements, and the dreaded rapid-fire 20mm flak Vierling batteries dot the landscape. The entire French coast is a fortress, and he has to fly right through its front door to get home. The sight of the fortified coastline is a punch to the gut. He had allowed himself a flicker of hope at the sight of the water, but now that hope is crushed under the cold, hard reality of the Atlantic Wall. This is the most heavily defended strip of land in the world, and every German gunner for miles knows the silhouette of a P-47 Thunderbolt. They have been trained for this exact moment, to shoot down any invading or returning aircraft that dares to cross their domain. He is a single, slow, low-flying, unarmed target, and he is about to offer himself up for target practice. There is no going around it. There is no over it. There is only through it. He pushes the nose down even further until he is so low that his propeller is almost clipping the whitecaps of the waves crashing onto the beach. He is flying in the dead zone, the area where the large-caliber flak guns cannot depress far enough to hit him, but he is now perfectly exposed to the smaller, rapid-fire weapons. It begins instantly. A storm of tracers rises to meet him, not the lazy orange golf balls of the 410's cannon, but a frantic, sparkling curtain of 20mm and machine gun fire. It comes from everywhere, from pillboxes on the cliffs, from sandbagged emplacements on the dunes, from mobile flak wagons hidden in the trees. The air around him seems to be alive with lethal, glowing insects. He jinks the aircraft violently, left, right, up, down, a random, unpredictable pattern meant to spoil the gunner's aim. The controls feel heavy, sluggish, the damage from the earlier fights taking its toll. A line of 20mm shells stitches a pattern in the water just to his right, the impacts walking towards him. He yanks the stick hard left, and the shells rip through the space he occupied a split second before. The sound is a continuous, deafening roar of his engine, the whine of stressed metal, and the whip crack of passing shells. He can feel the concussive thumps of near misses vibrating through his seat. A searing pain erupts in his left calf. He glances down. A shard of plexiglass from his canopy, shattered by a near miss, is embedded in his leg. Blood is already soaking through his flight suit. The pain is sharp and hot, but in the adrenaline-fueled terror of the moment, it feels distant, secondary. Survival is all that matters. He keeps flying, his jaw clenched so tight it feels like his teeth might shatter. The coastline is slipping past beneath him with agonizing slowness. He is over the water now, the beach receding behind him, but the gunners are not giving up. The tracers follow him out to sea, arcing out over the waves, their glow diminishing with distance, but their threat no less real. He doesn't dare climb. He stays low, skimming the gray, choppy surface of the channel. A new fear grips him. If his engine is hit now, even by a single lucky bullet, he will plunge straight into the icy water with no chance to glide. The Thunderbolt is a rock. It does not float. He risks a glance at his fuel gauge. The needle is bouncing on the absolute bottom of the red. The engine, starved of fuel, coughs once, a sickening sound that chills him to the bone. It sputters, then catches again. He is flying on vapor, on a prayer. The English coast is a faint gray smudge on the far horizon, an impossible distance away. He is alone, wounded, in a crippled, empty aircraft over the cold, merciless sea. The flak from the coast is finally falling behind, but the most insidious enemy of all, the simple, empty void of his fuel tanks, is now closing in for the kill. The Thunderbolt's engine gives another, more violent cough. This time, it doesn't just sputter. It dies for a full second, the propeller windmilling uselessly before the fuel in the injection lines ignites, and it roars back to life with a jarring lurch. The sound is no longer the steady, confident thrum of power. It is the death rattle of a dying beast. Each cough sends a jolt of pure terror through Drew's system. He is out of time. The English coast is still a distant line, a promise he may not live to keep. He switches his radio back on, his voice tight with strain. Mayday, Mayday, this is Kingfish Blue 3. I am over the channel, engine failing, repeat, engine failing. Estimate 20 miles from French coast. Does anyone read? The static hisses back, a taunting, empty sound. He is truly alone. The vast gray expanse of the English Channel stretches out in every direction, its surface choppy and cold. The sky above is an empty, indifferent dome of gray cloud. Below, the water looks like lead. He does the math, a grim calculus of distance and despair. He knows he won't make it to England, not even close. His only hope is to ditch the aircraft in the channel and hope, against all odds, that someone heard his mayday, that the Air Sea Rescue Service, the brave men in their high-speed launches and amphibious aircraft, can find him before hypothermia claims him or the channel swallows his aircraft. The thought of ditching a P-47 is terrifying. It was not designed for water landings. Its massive, blunt nose and heavy radial engine act like a plow, almost guaranteeing a violent, catastrophic stop. The procedure is drilled into every pilot, but few who have attempted it have survived. He begins his preparations, his movements deliberate and practiced, a stark contrast to the frantic chaos of the dogfight. He jettisons the canopy, which is ripped away by the slipstream with a deafening roar. The cold, salt spray-filled air whips into the cockpit, stinging his eyes and the wound in his leg. He tightens his harness until it is painfully secure. He makes sure his Mae West life vest is inflated. He locks his shoulder harness. He radios one last desperate message, giving his estimated position as best he can. Ditching now. I repeat, ditching now. The engine gives one final shuddering gasp and quits altogether. The silence is instantaneous and utterly terrifying. The only sound is the rush of the wind and the slap of waves against the fuselage. The great aircraft, now a glider, begins to lose altitude. He trims it for a controlled descent, aiming to touch down parallel to the swells, not into them. The water rushes up to meet him with frightening speed. It is the longest minute of his life. He keeps the nose up, bleeding off speed, trying to stall the aircraft just as it kisses the water. His hands are firm on the controls, his body braced for the impact. He says a final, silent goodbye. The wheels touch the waves, and then the world explodes in a cacophony of screaming metal and rushing water. The impact is far more violent than he ever imagined, a brutal, decelerating crash that slams him forward against his harness. The nose digs in, and the aircraft flips violently onto its back, the world in his canopy turning from gray sky to churning greenish-black water in an instant. The cold is a physical shock, so intense it knocks the breath from his lungs. Water pours into the inverted cockpit, shockingly cold, rising fast. He is trapped, upside down in a metal coffin, sinking into the depths of the English Channel. Darkness. Crushing, icy darkness. The shock of the cold water is paralyzing, 1,000 needles stabbing into his skin all at once. The world is a disorienting tumult of bubbles and roaring water. For a terrifying second, Drew doesn't know which way is up. His training fights through the panic. Find the reference point. The cockpit canopy is below him now. He is hanging upside down in his harness. He fumbles for the harness release, his numb fingers slipping on the cold metal catch. The water is rising, already at his chest, his neck. He takes a last gasping breath of the air pocket trapped in the inverted cockpit just as the water closes over his head. The silence underwater is sudden and absolute, broken only by the groans of the dying aircraft. He yanks the release lever. The harness gives way, and he drops, plunging down into the cold gloom, now free of the seat, but still trapped inside the sinking aircraft. He kicks, his legs feeling heavy and useless, his wounded calf screaming in protest. He pushes himself away from the instrument panel, moving towards where he knows the missing canopy should be, a rectangle of slightly lighter gloom. His lungs are already burning, demanding air. He fights the instinct to breathe, to open his mouth and suck in the deadly salt water. His head bumps against something solid, the edge of the cockpit. He's disoriented. Is this the way out? He pushes again, scrambling, his flight boots heavy, threatening to drag him down. His hand finds open water. He pulls himself through the opening, kicking frantically, not knowing if he is swimming towards the surface or deeper into the abyss. The light grows brighter. His vision is spotting. His chest feels like it's about to explode. With one final, desperate kick, he breaches the surface. He gasps, sucking in huge, ragged breaths of cold, salty air. The shock of being alive is almost as great as the shock of the cold. He treads water, spinning around, taking in his situation. The tail of his P-47 is the last thing to disappear, slipping beneath the waves with a final gurgling sigh, leaving behind a spreading pool of oil and a few pieces of floating debris. He is alone, completely alone. The immensity of the channel is overwhelming. The waves, which seemed small from the air, now tower over him, lifting him up and dropping him into troughs that hide the horizon. The cold is already seeping into his bones, a deadly lethargy beginning to creep into his muscles. He knows he doesn't have long. Hypothermia will claim him in minutes, not hours. He inflates his Mae West life vest a bit more, the bright yellow offering a pathetic but vital speck of color in the vast gray seascape. He starts to pray again, this time out loud, his voice a hoarse, chattering whisper against the wind. He thinks of the men who didn't make it this far, the ones he saw spiraling down in flames over Schweinfurt. He owes it to them to survive. He has to tell their story. He has to tell his own. But as the minutes stretch on and the cold tightens its grip, that hope begins to fade, replaced by a grim, chilling certainty. He has survived 3 enemy planes, a strafing run, a dogfight, and a ditching, only to die a slow, anonymous death in the cold, indifferent sea. The sound of an aircraft engine cuts through his despair, a distant, droning hum. His heart leaps. He fumbles for his flare gun, his fingers so numb he can barely feel it. But as the aircraft draws closer, his hope turns to a new kind of terror. The silhouette is wrong. It's not the friendly, high-winged shape of an air-sea rescue walrus flying boat. It's a twin-engine aircraft heading straight for him. And it's German. The drone of the aircraft engine grows louder, a menacing buzz that cuts through the howling wind and the slap of waves. Drew's heart, which had leapt with a fleeting hope, now plummets into a new depths of despair. He recognizes the silhouette now. It's a Junkers Ju-88, a German multi-role aircraft, often used for reconnaissance and, chillingly, for maritime patrol. It circles overhead, a shark scenting blood in the water. Is it here by chance, or did they track him from the coast? It doesn't matter. The result is the same. He is a helpless, floating target. He expects the nose to sparkle with machine gun fire at any moment, to see the tracers reaching down to stitch the water around him, finishing the job the flak guns and the Me-410 couldn't. He sinks lower in the water, making his yellow Mae West as small a target as possible, a futile gesture against the guns of an aircraft. But the expected attack doesn't come. The Ju-88 continues to circle, lower now. He can see the black crosses on its wings, the glint of the cockpit glass. It seems to be observing him. A new, more horrifying thought occurs to him. They aren't going to kill him. They are going to capture him. A German seaplane, a Rado AR-196, could be vectored in to scoop him out of the water. The thought of being taken prisoner, of spending the rest of the war in a Stalag Luft, is almost worse than death. He would be interrogated, his knowledge of Allied procedures and aircraft exploited. The 3 kills he scored would be for nothing, his story lost, his fate unknown to his comrades and family. He would become just another name on a missing in action list. The Ju-88 makes one final pass, so low he can see the faces of the crew in the cockpit for a split second. And then it banks away, its engine note fading as it heads back towards the French coast. The silence it leaves behind is somehow more terrifying than its presence. They know he's here. They will be sending someone for him. He has minutes, maybe less, before he is hauled aboard a German boat or plane. The fleeting hope of rescue by his own people is gone, replaced by the grim certainty of capture. He has fought so hard, come so far, only to end up as a trophy for the enemy. He looks at his flare gun, a useless tool now. Firing it would only signal his position to the Germans. He is truly and utterly defeated. But then, from the west, a new sound emerges, faint at first, then growing steadily. It's not the deep thrum of a Ju-88. It's a higher-pitched, rhythmic roar, a familiar roar. He squints, straining his eyes against the glare on the water. And then he sees it. The beautiful, angelic shape of a high-winged, single-engine aircraft, painted in the brilliant yellow and blue of the Royal Air Force Air-Sea Rescue Service. It's a supermarine walrus, an ungainly but magnificent biplane amphibian coming in low and slow, preparing to land on the choppy water. They heard his mayday. They braved the contested skies to find him. The Germans may be coming, but so is salvation. The race for his life has entered its final, most dramatic lap. He gasps, sucking in huge, ragged breaths of cold, salty air. The shock of being alive is almost as great as the shock of the cold. He treads water, spinning around, taking in his situation. The tail of his P-47 is the last thing to disappear, slipping beneath the waves with a final gurgling sigh, leaving behind a spreading pool of oil and a few pieces of floating debris. He is alone, completely alone. The immensity of the channel is overwhelming. The waves, which seem small from the air, now tower over him, lifting him up and dropping him into troughs that hide the horizon. The cold is already seeping into his bones, a deadly lethargy beginning to creep into his muscles. He knows he doesn't have long. Hypothermia will claim him in minutes, not hours. He inflates his Mae West life vest a bit more, the bright yellow offering a pathetic but vital speck of color in the vast gray seascape. He starts to pray again, this time out loud, his voice a hoarse, chattering whisper against the wind. He thinks of the men who didn't make it this far, the ones he saw spiraling down in flames over Schweinfurt. He owes it to them to survive. He has to tell their story. He has to tell his own. But as the minutes stretch on and the cold tightens its grip, that hope begins to fade, replaced by a grim, chilling certainty. He has survived 3 enemy planes, a strafing run, a dogfight, and a ditching, only to die a slow, anonymous death in the cold, indifferent sea. The sound of an aircraft engine cuts through his despair, a distant, droning hum. His heart leaps. He fumbles for his flare gun, his fingers so numb he can barely feel it. But as the aircraft draws closer, his hope turns to a new kind of terror. The silhouette is wrong. It's not the friendly high-wing shape of an air-sea rescue walrus flying boat. It's a twin-engine aircraft heading straight for him. And it's German. The drone of the aircraft engine grows louder, a menacing buzz that cuts through the howling wind and the slap of waves. Drew's heart, which had leapt with a fleeting hope, now plummets into a new depths of despair. He recognizes the silhouette now. The walrus settles onto the water with a graceful splash, its hull riding the swells like a sturdy seabird. It taxis towards him, its single propeller beating the air, a sight more beautiful than any angel. Drew waves a numb arm, a surge of raw, disbelieving emotion choking him. He was moments from giving up, from surrendering to the cold and the prospect of capture. Now, rescue is just yards away. The side hatch of the walrus clunks open, and 2 figures in RAF rescue gear wave him over, their faces grim but determined. The choppy water makes the approach difficult. Every wave pushes him away from the aircraft. His limbs are leaden, his movements slow and clumsy. The cold has stolen his strength. He fights through the exhaustion, kicking with all his might, his wounded leg a dull, throbbing agony. A rope is thrown to him. He misses it. It is pulled back and thrown again. This time, his frozen fingers manage to close around the rough hemp. He is hauled, half drowned and shivering uncontrollably, towards the walrus. Hands grab his flight suit, heaving him unceremoniously through the hatch. He collapses onto the cold metal deck of the aircraft, gasping and vomiting salt water. The crew immediately surrounds him, wrapping him in thick wool blankets, rubbing his arms and legs to restore circulation. The pain as the blood flow returns is excruciating, 1,000 fiery pins and needles. But it is a pain he welcomes. It means he is alive. "You're a lucky man, Yank," one of the British crewmen says with a grin, his voice barely audible over the engine. "We just got a report of a Jerry patrol heading this way. Another 5 minutes and you'd have been drinking schnapps for the duration." The pilot from his cockpit shouts back, "Strap in, we're not out of this yet." The Walrus's engine revs, and the clumsy but buoyant aircraft begins its laborious takeoff run, bouncing from wavetop to wavetop, its wings straining to lift the heavy load. Drew clutches the blankets around him, his teeth chattering, and looks out the small window. He sees the sleek, gray shape of a German E-boat cutting through the water, still a few miles off, but closing fast. It's a race against time. The Walrus needs calm water to take off, and the channel is anything but calm. The aircraft bounces, slams down, bounces again. It feels like it will tear itself apart. Finally, with a final, defiant roar, the Walrus unsticks itself from the grip of the waves and climbs sluggishly into the air. They are airborne. They have beaten the Germans. As they gain altitude, turning towards the white cliffs of Dover now visible in the distance, Drew looks down at the E-boat, now just a speck on the water. He has done it. He has survived. But as the relief washes over him, a new anxiety takes hold. He is safe, but he is also now a man with a story to tell. A story of 3 kills in a single mission, a feat of arms that borders on the mythical. Will anyone even believe him? The landing at the RAF base in England is a blur of noise, light, and frantic activity. The Walrus touches down on a grassy field, and as the hatch opens, Drew is met by a crowd of medics and his own squadron mates, their faces a mixture of relief and awe. He is lifted onto a stretcher, his leg wound finally getting proper attention. The debriefing begins almost immediately, right there in the medical tent. An intelligence officer with a stern face and a notepad listens, his expression growing increasingly incredulous as Drew recounts his story. The chaos over Schweinfurt, the desperate strafing run on the airfield, the 3 confirmed kills, 2 Me-410s on the ground and 1 in the air. The officer's pen stops. "Let me be clear, Lieutenant," he says, his voice carefully neutral. "You are claiming the destruction of 3 enemy aircraft, including a brand new Me-410 in aerial combat, on a single mission after becoming separated from your group, and then you ditched in the channel and were rescued?" Drew, weak and exhausted, simply nods. "Yes, sir." The officer looks at him for a long moment, then closes his notepad. "We'll need to corroborate this, Lieutenant. Gun camera footage, reports from other pilots. It's an extraordinary claim." In the days that follow, the evidence slowly trickles in. Other pilots from the 4th Fighter Group confirm seeing Drew engage the enemy and then disappear. The gun camera footage from his aircraft, recovered before the Thunderbolt sank, is developed. The grainy black and white images are silent but damning. They show the strafing run in vivid detail, the parked Me-410s erupting in flames, one after the other. And then the climactic footage of the aerial duel. The Me-410 filling the frame, the sustained burst of fire, and the catastrophic disintegration of the German aircraft's tail. The evidence is irrefutable. Urban Ben Drew has done the impossible. His story spreads through the 8th Air Force like wildfire, a beacon of hope and defiance in a time of terrible losses. He is credited with 3 confirmed victories on a single mission, a triple ace in a day achievement that places him among the most elite fighter pilots of the war. But for Drew, the medals and the accolades are secondary. The memory that stays with him, the one that will haunt his dreams for the rest of his life, is not of victory, but of the cost. The sight of the falling B-17s, the faces of the men he couldn't save, the cold, final silence of the channel. He became a hero, not out of a desire for glory, but out of a fierce, protective loyalty to the men flying the bombers, his brothers in arms. His story is more than a tale of aerial prowess. It is a testament to the human capacity for courage, resilience, and sacrifice in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a reminder that in the vast, impersonal machinery of war, it is the individual, the lone pilot in his cockpit, who can, through sheer force of will, change the course of a day and etch his name into history.